I would think about it this way. When you're investing, the core thing you're doing is you're trying to predict what will happen in the world. You're looking out in the world, and when you're buying an investment, there's future value there relative to money you're putting in today. You have to have an outward looking view of what will happen in the future. And right now, it's almost impossible to imagine kind of an intelligent conversation about what's happening in the world and where it's going on any topic that is not going to hit key themes that we seem to talk about in terms of sustainability. We're going to end up speaking about the quality of governance in the world and whether or not it will be effective to get any legislation passed in a place like the United States, or whether there'll be bipartisanship, what will happen with issues like Brexit. We're going to end up talking about social issues and whether there'll be unrest and what it really means to have quality of well-being, and therefore what companies will try to pursue and what governments will try to pursue. And of course, we'll end up talking about environmental risks and how climate will play in, or just quality of air and how that's going to change regulatory policy and what people are like. So once you're looking at a world where you can't look at the world and try to predict the future not thinking about these issues, it becomes very embedded to whatever analysis you're doing on any investment. These issues will be pertinent to that investment in a key way, because that's actually that important to what's going on in the world. And, we had spoken a little bit about COVID and how it hit things. I think that before COVID, it was more common for us to get questions like, are you sure climate's actually important? And COVID in some ways made it more intuitive that things like this in the natural world can come and affect everything around us in a very dramatic way. So it's becoming much more intuitive to, I think, investors that this is a very critical issue. And I think that the other big backdrop is that because monetary policy has gotten to where it has, where interest rates have been zero for about 10 years, there's already been a lot of quantitative easing and so on and so forth, that the big role that monetary policy has played in most investors' investing life is kind of behind us. Fiscal policy is moving into that same place where that is the most effective kind of policy. In fact, the most effective kind of policy going forward is what we've called monetary policy 3, really the combination of doing both monetary printing and having fiscal policy. And what that means is that relative to 10 or 20 years ago, all these social issues or governance issues are a lot more important than they were, for the simple reason that fiscal policy is inherently distributional. It's inherently social. It's meant to be choosing who is going to receive what. Whereas monetary policy is more technocratic. The goal of fiscal policy is much more to decide how to distribute the resources, to make regulation, to decide whether or not coal is going to be allowed or whether or not we're going to get our energy via cleaner ways. And so we're also in a world where, because of that secular backdrop where interest rates are already zero and so on, all of these issues are a much bigger part of the policy process that's the backdrop to every investment than they have been in a very long time. And COVID is really, we're seeing fiscal policies play the biggest role they have in economies basically at any time in recorded history over COVID. And that's much more likely to be the norm than the exception going forward.